Here, please sign the sign-in.
Started. So assignment 2 has been up on Blackboard since the weekend. I posted a video to YouTube about stacked walls, which is this part 1 of assignment 2. I don't know if anybody has looked at that yet, but basically this assignment you're going to create a stacked wall, which is similar to the wall types that we have been creating, except you'll make 2 separate wall types and use the stacked wall type to put one on top of the other. And then the second part of that is creating roof types, and let's delete that because that was a failure. But basically in one file you'll have your stacked wall, and you'll find the stacked wall underneath the gray label of stacked wall. So once you create your 2 different wall types, you'll then edit a stacked wall to be able to put your 2 wall types on top of each other, and you'll use that wall type as support walls for all of these different roof types. There is a video tutorial on this blog spot that shows you how to create the majority of them. I will show you today how to create the flat roof with a where's my section here? Wrong section. You don't have to detail out the wall type, that's just for your benefit on the assignment sheet. How to basically create a flat roof that slopes in one direction. So we'll work through that today, and then I'll also show you a more complex roof where similar to our butterfly roof, except that this roof only slopes inwards to the center. I'd like to show you how to create one that also slopes to an end point as well. So those are 2 things I'd like to get accomplished today, and then before that though, we're going to check out a wall and see what else we can actually host to them, and then also create a custom surface pattern today, which is pretty simple. It's just finding the right file and copying it over and changing a couple of numbers. But the benefit of that is in elevation, or you know, if you have a panelized system that's fairly complicated, that has a bunch of holes in it or something, and you're having trouble modeling that in 3D, you can create a surface pattern that represents that, and you can show it in a 2D drawing surface, so like an elevation. So I wanted to give you guys a heads up about assignment 2, and that is due this Thursday at midnight. So the custom surface pattern is due tonight. So just a wall and a floor with a custom surface pattern, which we're going to start right now. I just wanted to let everyone, because it wasn't clear after last Thursday that this assignment was up. At least I didn't feel like it was clear to everybody. So it's good to check Blackboard to see what assignments are coming up and what's due next. And the in-class assignment 3, I guess I didn't make that clear either, that part 1 and part 2 was part of that. So as a result, if you did part 2 of that, you got an extra 5 points of credit towards your grade. Unfortunately, I do recall saying that part 1 and part 2 were due in that, but the majority of you guys didn't turn that in, so whoever did got an extra 5 points. At any rate, let's go ahead and open up a new project. And I'm looking at surface patterns. Yay! Let's go back to our recent files and open up an architectural template. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw a big wall in there for now and escape out. And I'm going to put my top constraint to level 2. So we haven't really gotten into many of these tools yet. Thursday we'll be getting into a lot more of these tools, but today I just wanted to show you briefly that components that incorporate into walls. We learned about the open wall tool in the first day of class. Doors also are hosted on walls, and it only comes with this type of door. But if you hit load family once you're in the command, or if you go to the insert tab and click load family, so there's 2 places that you can start to load families in, it should bring up this US Imperial family library, and you can come down here to click on doors. And if I change my list of thumbnails, you can see these are all the kind of standard door types that come with Revit, and they all host to walls. So if you guys watched that advanced conceptual mass thing that I put up this weekend too, you'd notice that on the curved wall you can still put a door into it. It looks a little awkward, so you may have to go back into the family and try to get it to. I actually didn't have luck with doing that, but rotating the door a bit so that it actually fits the slope of the wall that you got going on. At any rate, this is also where you can get your curtain glass wall types as well, which are hosted on curtain walls and not regular doors. So if I load in like a single curtain glass wall and open it, you'll notice that it doesn't show up here. But if I load in, like a regular, that's not a door, but it does now start to show up here, and you can place those door types along the wall. Other things that you can place on walls are wall-based components or families. Most suitable would be like a light, like an internal light. The scone light should be wall-based. Let me see here. Yeah. So if we go to our component tab, you'll see a scone light, and see how it snaps to the wall face. And it has a base elevation of 6 feet 4 off whatever floor plan you're drawing in, so I happen to be in level 1. So You can host things to walls. There are other family types that host to walls. And then also windows as well. So right now they just give you a standard fixed window, which we could place in the wall and then change the sill height. We could also load in another family type, and they have a lot of different family types here. And so once you start to understand how, you know, the family types work, you can start to manipulate some of these and do a save as and do custom without having to like redraw the entire thing. The other thing is that all these different family types in here are similar to like we created our wall reveal where we had multiple families within the same one. So this whole thing is parametric and it flexes. So there's dimensions to each one of these guys. So if we went to our windows down here and edited that window, you'll see all these reference lines. Where are we going here? And all these dimensions and their parameters of height and sill height and width. So those are all predetermined parameters set up for that particular window that then you can start to change. And they made new family types and put the correct dimensions in, and it flexed. So we just kind of briefly touch on how to start doing custom parameter families, but it's really what Revit does. So just to give you an idea of every single family that you load in from their templates has parameters associated to it that you can change and start editing to make something custom. At any rate, I'm going to close out of these, go back to our wall type. And then the last kind of thing that I want to show is that you can embed curtain walls into your walls as well. So if we go down to draw a wall and scroll down to our curtain walls, we can, I'm just going to grab exterior glazing, but I can draw a curtain wall in here, and it's going to give me a warning that these walls overlap. But I can cut, selecting the wall first and then the curtain wall. We can cut curtain walls into regular walls, and then you can start to say the sill height is 3 feet. Yeah.
So if we cut in a curtain wall, then would we be able to put in a curtain door or whatever that one was in that?
I'll show you in a second. So let's keep this actually at 0, and that was a good idea. Didn't think about that. Set to level 2. And I'm going to go ahead and edit this type and duplicate it, and I'm just going to go ahead and say none for now so I can set up, and it's going to say, oh, you got to delete those grid lines. Okay, so we have a door, right, that's roughly 3 feet, 3'2" maybe with the mullions and everything, and the height of it is probably 7'2" with the mullions. So now I can tab through and select that surface, that glass surface, and now that I've loaded that curtain wall glazing single glass doorway, we can select that, and that changes to a curtain glass doorway. And so if I switch back to my level 1, you'll see I have a door swing that I can change. You can also use the space bar to do that as well. And then to take that one step further, I would apply mullions to that. And maybe delete that one mullion. Tabbing through and deleting that. And so now that's starting to look like a storefront entry door. So it's always best to do that within a floor plan view so you get the center of the wall. And then in your modified tab, we can cut that out. And then if you, once you have that selected, you can go ahead and maybe copy that, and you've got the right dimensions in it, so you make sure that it's the dimension that you want. You can start to copy that guy or array him, it, not him, you know, a bunch of times in the same plane, but you couldn't like, yeah. So then you just have to cut each one of those out. Use my filter command to just grep the walls and set them to level 2. So anyways, those are some different elements that you can host on a wall and in a wall, and you'll notice there's that light that I placed. And we could change the elevation of that, you know, to be 8 feet, and it'll move around. And just similarly, there's temporary dimensions off different objects as well. So, okay, so now we've got this generic wall type that we've created, and we want to go into its edit type properties, and we're going to duplicate it, and we're just going to call mine number 2 for now. And typically you would want to do the custom wall pattern on an exterior side of the wall or an interior side. I'm just going to set that to being 2 inches, and basically when we hit our material browser, we want to create probably a new material and not create one from or manipulate one of these materials that are already in here. So down here at the bottom there's a little circle with a plus sign. We can say create new material and right click it to rename it, and custom pattern. So you'll notice here there's a thing in the graphics tab that says surface pattern. If we click on that, it brings up a dialog box that has a bunch of patterns already embedded into the project, and there's also model patterns. And I'm not 100% sure the difference between the two, and for now it's not necessarily important to understand the difference, but you'll see we can edit one of these, or we could also create a new one. So if we create a new one, we have an option to create a custom one, and it asks us to import a new pattern. And so basically we want to create a new pattern. So let's put this to the side for a second. We'll come back to this, but this is where you do it and load them in. Okay? And we're just going to create a fairly simple one. We're going to take like an 8x16 block and just make it a lot larger, but we're not going to do it from in here. So what I need everybody to do is go to their C drive. And we're going to click on program files, sorry, and then Autodesk. And in here you'll find whether you're using Revit 2014 or 2015, it doesn't matter, just click the one that you are using. And under data, you'll see this hatch pattern definition. You don't want the Revit metric, but you want the regular Revit. If we double click this, it opens up a text file. Don't edit this text file. Okay, there's directions here about how to create your own text pattern or fill patterns. We're just going to scroll down here and we're going to grab this text pattern. Now you want to make sure that you're getting everything from that little star all the way down to this -8. Okay? And we're going to copy it. So press Control C, or was it Apple C, Command C? Yeah. And we're going to go File, New, and we're going to go Control V. And so now we have just the one text pattern in here that we can start editing without affecting the original file that comes with Revit, because if you start manipulating that and you screw it up, you'll lose all those patterns, or you will lose the one that you were editing. So it's always best to copy the one that you want to, represent and move it to a new Notepad text file. And then also when you load this text file in to Revit, it won't load in 1,000 of them, it'll just load in one. So this right here is the name that appears here when you load it in, or here. So let's go back to the Notepad. So we want to edit this to say maybe panel and let's do a 24-inch panel. That's 25 inches. 24-inch by 144 inches. And we can change this as well to say 24 inches by 144 inches. And just say panel so we know what it is. We don't want to delete any of these asterisks or this line. We just want to edit and manipulate the numbers. So this top row basically denotes your spacing. So this one's saying it's spaced horizontally every 8 inches on the wall. So we're going to go ahead and make a change to that number because we want it spaced every 24 inches. So we're going to say 24 inches. This lower one is a little more tricky, and it's basically saying we're going to take a 90-degree bend, right, and now we're going to draw vertically along the wall. And for some reason it likes having these two zeros here first, but you'll notice that this one said 8, these guys say 8, right? And so what happens is that original pattern made an 8 by 16 inch block, right? So we kind of want to think about it in that concept where, so this one should say 24 inches, and this second one, however, needs to be half the distance of whatever your second dimension needs to be. So basically it needs to be 72 inches, and then it repeats the pattern again, 24 inches, and I don't fully understand the negative yet. I've read that text line like 1,000 times and it's super complicated, but I've played with it enough to know that it needs to be 24 inches. So now that we have this custom pattern, right, we can go ahead and do a save as. And I've made a few custom surface patterns, so I already have a place on my D drive that I place these. I would either place it back in, I don't think you can place it back in the original where we got it from. It kind of gives you an error that says you're manipulating the software and you don't want to do this. It doesn't want to let you save it in that same location where you actually opened the original file from. So put it somewhere, maybe in the class folder that you've been using for this class. Go ahead and put it in there. I'm going to keep it in my surface pattern family types. And it's not a text document, but go to all files and notice I have a few different ones, and I also downloaded some from like Revit City. And so you can also jump online, go to Revit City, search surface patterns, and you'll find a bajillion of them. And so if you don't feel comfortable creating your own, I would like you to create this one. But in the future, if you just want to find your own surface patterns online, at least you know how now to implement them into the project. Okay? So I'm going to name this 24 by 144 panel. And then I'm going to put a .pat behind it for pattern. And that's the file name format that you need to name your patterns. I'm just going to click save, and it says, yeah, it already exists. I'm going to go ahead and replace it. So now that we have that pattern saved somewhere, we can go back in and create a new model pattern, custom, import. And I was playing with this last night, so it still takes me directly to my surface patterns, but you would want to go to wherever your surface pattern is located and select 24 by 144 panel and click open. And import scale, always leave that at 1 so that when you actually go to print your elevations, they'll print 1:1. So don't change that scale, or you can't change the units. Say OK. Let me just double check that. Yeah, so the name of the panel that we put in there, right, appears panel. Whoops, this is a different file actually, but so the name of it appears here and here, and then it also creates the name here as well in your fill patterns. So now I have this custom surface pattern, and it's on the exterior of the wall, and you'll see now if I delete a few of these, that pattern shows up. And so I'm in my, wire hidden line. If I change to my, shaded, it goes away. But when you go to print elevations out of here, that pattern will be on there. I believe you can also do this to curtain panels. So notice the material is glass, right? So we could go to our Manage tab and open up our materials and type in glass. And it has no surface pattern at the moment, but you could go ahead and apply something to that. So if you had a large panelized system that maybe had a ton of holes in it, or you could set up a surface pattern that shows your panelized system with all your little holes in it without actually having to draw a three-dimensional model of that. Does that make some sense? A lot of blank stares. Let's just go ahead and apply it to my glass material for now. You'll see now it's represented on the glass as well. It's not a very good fit for that particular thing, but you're basically putting a surface pattern on the material, and then you're using that material and applying it to a wall. And then you could take this one step further, and maybe you didn't like the way that it's lining up. You can start to align this with the Align tool any way you want. You could also do this with a floor, because it's just a material, right? A layer. So we create a floor. It's my generic floor. I'm going to edit it, duplicate it, say OK, and I'm going to add a surface to it. Whoops. Needs a dimension. That probably in theory would not be 2 inches, but got my custom pattern that material that I made that's already has the surface pattern on it. So if you want to make custom concrete that shows your surface patterns, you can do that as well. I know in second year and third year they start to ask you to think about that kind of stuff later on in the program, about what that pattern's going to look like, how does it get represented. And if you don't like how it's lined up, you can start to modify that and align the pattern maybe in a different way. Maybe you want it aligned to the wall itself, or a larger pattern, because or maybe this is a tile surface. I don't know. It's a fairly large panel, 24 by 144. But at any rate, that's what's due tonight. Alright? So yeah, let's take a few minutes here to just make sure everybody understands how to do that. And if we have time, we'll go through those other 2 roof types. His hand was up first.
On this one?
Oh, hold on a second. Let me pause the video so you guys don't have to bear through this 10 minutes again. Let's keep the volume down a little bit too. so that, and I'm going to close this down, and I don't need to save this. So basically our goal is to create a flat roof with it sloping in one direction. I'm not going to get too detailed about how big this box is going to be, but I would try to kind of make them all uniform if you can, similar to this. So looks like they're 30 feet wide. Let's just grab this other dimension here. I tab through, I should be able to select the end point, or the very outside of the wall. It looks like that wall's 48 feet by 30 feet, basically. So I'm just going to go ahead, and since Joe was so kind to draw this file and give it to me, the stacked wall's already in here. I'm going to go ahead and draw a rectangle here. My level 1. Yes. This is going to be in a architectural template project file. Yeah, I don't want to get into how to create the stacked wall, because you guys can watch that video. I love how no temporary dimensions come up, which is odd. But at any rate, it's not my file. It's probably because it was made in a different version. That doesn't even work. That's awesome. Alright, it doesn't really matter at this point what the width of that wall is. So we're going to go to the Architecture tab, and we're going to click Roof by Footprint. And it's asking me, where do you want to place this? And it's intuitively, because we only have level 1 and level 2, it's saying you want to place this actually on level 2. And I want to say yes, I do. And so I'm going to go ahead and, with the rectangle tool, selecting on this inner corner point and then this inner corner point, drawing a rectangle. And you'll notice that I have these little triangles here. And what they are, it's basically defining the slope of the roof. And you can think about it as a hinge. So this line hinges. So if we were looking in a section, it hinges like this. Right, if we were to cut a section through here, so this point is this line, and it's hinging, it's opening up like a hinge, like a door hinge, right? So we don't necessarily want that. We want a flat roof, right? So if we select all of those lines, in our options bar here, we can click Define Slope. We can uncheck that, and now it grays out this slope parameter here. So I'm going to just go ahead and say OK. Would you like to attach? Let's not attach our walls, because it'll be like a parapet where the wall will extend past it, right? So once we select the flat roof, we have this Modify Sub-Elements tab. If we click that, it dashes the outside of the line of the roof that you created, and it gives you an option to select on the corners and also on the dashed line itself. You can see that we can change the dimension of one of these corners. We tab through enough times. Come on, little buddy. There we go. We can put like a negative, I don't know, 2 inches. Maybe that's not extreme enough. Let's go 6 inches. Well, that's not negative. So we can go back into our floor plan and draw a section through here to see what that's actually doing. If I highlight the section line and right click and say go to view, you can see that that's starting to put a slope to that one lower point. So that's how you create that flat roof with a slope on it.
Can you go back to when you're like editing the roof in 3D view?
Yeah.
Basically, just how'd you get the green lines?
Yeah.
So when you select the roof itself, in our modify roof tab here, we can modify sub-elements. And if we select that, those dashed lines appear.
How do you make it slope?
You have to select on one of these points, and you can see a dimension, a temporary dimension pops up. You can select the number, the dimension itself, and change it. You could also add more points to the roof. You could split the roof to start maybe draining to the center. And you could also start to pick points where maybe there's a structural beam that's a little bit lower that you want the roof to be on. So it's another way you could draw a butterfly roof if you wanted to. Yeah.
How do you see the section?
Okay. So if you go back to your floor plan, you have to draw one. And so you can find that in the quick access toolbar here, or you can go down to your view tab and you'll find it here in your ribbon. But you just click once and drag it, click again to end the command, and then this button, just like a wall, allows you to flip the section from one side to the other. And you have your arrows, you can extend this guy to maybe see, maybe you want to see both roofs in the section. You also have these little blue dots that allow you, they're modify points that allow you to move it out of the way. And this little guy here splits your dimension, or splits it so that maybe you don't want to see the cut line through whatever you're drawing, so you're not muddying up your floor plan. That makes some sense.
So you have to have both of those lines to see the section.
Okay, we've got 5 minutes. I'm going to quickly run through. It's enough time for me to draw it, but it might not be enough time for you to understand what's happening. But it'll be in the video. And you don't necessarily have to draw this roof type. I just think it's cool to know how to do it, because I personally don't like a flat butterfly roof. I like it to drain to one corner. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy these walls over. And I used similar to how we copied our levels, highlighted them, used the control button, hovered over them, and just copied them over. And what am I in here? Probably my east elevation. Should be my east elevation. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and create an elevation marker. So that I have an elevation of this guy. And I'm going to go to that elevation, and we can draw reference planes in our elevation view. So I'm going to draw my reference plane at a slope, say 3%, and I'm going to select it, and I'm just going to name it butterfly roof. So basically we're going to be drawing on this plane, and we're going to be extruding a component. So I'm going to go up to my components tab, and I can model in place components. And so I'm going to click model in place, and it says, well, what category of component do you want to model? And we're particularly modeling a roof. So let's select that, because there are certain things like you can attach your walls to roofs, and so you want to make sure you're drawing in the correct category so that you can do functions like that. Or if you're creating anything else like a wall or something that you want to draw like a wall, but you want to have one of our families that places on walls actually work with it, you want to choose a wall for your category. So roofs, we're going to select roofs, say okay, it's going to ask me to name it. And I could probably not have any spaces in there. Say okay. And I'm pretty sure now that I have my named reference plane, I can pick a plane. So I went up here to set my work plane to my butterfly work plane here. I'm going to say OK. And now it says, well, you can't draw on the elevation view, so it's going to ask you to open up another view. I'm just going to open up my floor plan level 2, and we know that that reference plane is at a slope, right, from this edge to this edge. This edge is the lower edge, this one's the higher edge. We can create a sweep, and if we sketch the path of the sweep here on the center line and hit the check button, we can then edit the profile of that sweep. And it's easiest to probably do this in our south elevation. So we have these crosshairs similar to like we were drawing a custom family in its own family tab. Family project. Slipping my words up. We can now start to draw our custom butterfly roof, which is not long enough. We want it to be a foot thick. I can can select these 3 lines and use the mirror by picking axis, and I can pick the center axis of this and press the check button twice, and you'll see now in my 3D view this roof is now sloping in 2 different it's sloping inward, but it's also sloping to this point, and so it's not quite there yet, so maybe we want to extend this path. Probably not in a 3D view is the best place to do that. Now I should be able to select all those walls by hitting the tab button, and then I can attach these to my roof plane. So now there's a double sloped butterfly roof. So this roof is just for your own knowledge. You don't have to draw it with these other roof types.
You want the flat roof?
Did everybody
Yep.
sign?
Yeah, definitely draw the flat roof with the slope to 1 point.
25 and 25.
I didn't count.
And that project is due Thursday night. So that's your stacked wall and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 roofs. The custom pattern that you put on the wall and the floor. So turn that file in today.
Is there any way you can slope everything on your to the middle? Where you have like a drain in the middle?
Yeah, so with
You have
that,
to add another point or something?
yeah, so with the modify tab button, you'll notice that you can add lines. If you just kind of watch this video, you should be able to add lines and then a point appears.
Oh,
You can
okay.
select that center point and drop it down.
Makes more sense kind of slope to the middle. I don't know why.
Yeah, I didn't let the video like play
Yeah.
actually.
So on these, when you're like actually doing it, does it like when if you're doing something, does it matter which one you use? Like with the 3 ones that are the same.
There's just 3 different ways you
So
can
you can
draw
do
it.
it either way when you're actually
Yeah.
doing something.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. Just making sure you didn't have to do one for some instances and others for others.
Family and materials.
Robert.
Waiting.
What's going on?
Yeah, I knew that.
It doesn't if you do it as a.
Yeah. We didn't talk about that. Yeah.
You're right. I didn't mention that because I told him at this point it wasn't important to know the difference.
You told me you didn't know what the difference.
Yes.
I
Which
do
I
know
thought
the
was a little
difference.
weird.
I do know the difference. Maybe I'll let them know next class that I do know the difference between the two.
Edit that part out of the video. Just make it pause for seconds.